You have a list. Not written down, you'd never write it down. But it lives in you. The thing you're going to do when the timing is better. When you're more ready. When life settles into the shape it's supposed to take before you begin. One day, you tell yourself, here's what nobody tells you about one day. It's not a plan. It's not even a hope. It's a story you're telling yourself so you can want something and avoid it at the same time. And the most dangerous part? It works. Perfectly. Until it doesn't. The anatomy of the delay. One day is one of the most sophisticated psychological maneuvers a human being can perform on themselves. Because it doesn't feel like avoidance. Avoidance feels like cowardice, and you know what cowardice feels like. That low, tight sensation in your chest when you back away from something. One day doesn't feel like that. It feels like wisdom, like patience, like you're being responsible and strategic, waiting for the right moment, building the right foundation, not rushing into something before you're prepared. It feels like planning, and plans are virtuous. Except there's a detail missing from every single one-day plan ever made. A date. Not a rough window. Not a season. A date. A Tuesday. A specific morning you can point to and say, that is when I begin. Without a date, one day is not a plan. It's a feeling. A warm, comfortable feeling that gives you all the psychological satisfaction of intention without any of the exposure of action. You get to want the thing and be the person who wants it, without ever having to find out whether you can actually do it. And the mind is extraordinarily good at sustaining this. It can run one day for years, decades. It will update the plan every few months, revise the conditions that need to be in place first, shift the goalposts just far enough that they stay visible but never reachable, and the whole time, it will feel like progress. It isn't, but it feels like it. Hard pause. Then, and here is the part that costs the most. Every year you run one day, you don't just lose time. You lose the version of you that would have existed had you started, the skills you'd have built, the failures you'd have learned from, the life that would have grown in the direction you keep pointing at, but never walking toward. One day doesn't just delay your future. It quietly erases a version of it entirely. What's actually being protected? So why does the brain do this? Why construct such an elaborate, convincing delay? Because starting is not the scary part. Failing is the scary part. Being seen trying and coming up short. Discovering that the thing you've been protecting inside the space of one day, the dream, the version of yourself that finally has it together, doesn't survive contact with reality the way you imagined. As long as you haven't started, that version of you is still possible. The potential is intact. The dream is undefeated. The moment you begin, you risk finding out. There's a concept in psychology called self-handicapping, the tendency to create conditions that explain away failure before it happens. Studying the night before. Starting the project the week it's due. Not trying fully, so that if it doesn't work, the effort is the excuse rather than the ability. One day is self-handicapping at its most elegant. You never have to risk the dream because the conditions for beginning are never quite right enough. The timing, the resources, the confidence, the circumstances. Something is always missing. And because something is always missing, you are always, permanently, almost ready. But here's the thing about confidence that will reorder everything you think you know about it. Confidence doesn't come before you begin. It comes from having begun. Every person you've looked at and thought, they have something I don't, some internal certainty I'm still waiting to feel. They didn't wait to feel it. They started without it. And the act of starting, of surviving the discomfort of the first attempt and the second and the third, that's where the certainty came from. You've been waiting to feel ready so you can start. But ready is built by starting. You cannot feel your way into action. You have to act your way into feeling. The one-day logic has it exactly backwards. The mathematics of now. Let's talk about time honestly for a moment. Not philosophically, mathematically. If you want to do something that takes 1,000 hours of real work, writing a book, learning an instrument, building a business, getting genuinely fit, and you give it 1 hour a day, you're looking at roughly 3 years. 1 hour a day, 3 years. That sounds long. But here's the calculation that matters more. If you wait 1 more year to start, it becomes 4 years. 2 more years, 5. And the cruelest part of the math is that the delay doesn't feel like losing years. It feels like a few vague seasons where the timing wasn't quite right, where you were almost ready, where something kept coming up. That's not 3 years from now. That's your 40s, your 50s, The decades you looked at from your 20s and thought, I'll have done something by then. The distance between where you are and where you want to be is measured in days of action. And those days don't start themselves. There's a reason the people who've built things, real things, not fantasies, almost uniformly say the same thing when you ask them what they wish they'd known. They wish they'd started sooner. Not better. Not smarter. Not with more preparation. Sooner. Because the mistakes they made early were the education. The version 1 was supposed to be rough. That's what version 1 is for. But they had to make it to find out. And the making of it was what made everything after possible. You don't need to be ready. You need to be in motion. And here's the specific thing about today that tomorrow can't replicate. Today, you still have the feeling. The pull toward the thing you keep saying one day about. That feeling is data. It's directional information. It's pointing at something real. That feeling doesn't last forever. Not because dreams die dramatically, but because the small, daily decision not to begin eventually numbs it. People don't give up on dreams in a single devastating moment. They let them go incrementally, quietly, painlessly, one not today at a time, until the want itself becomes background noise they've learned to live with. Today it's still loud. Use that. The thing you already know. I want to say something that might land differently than everything else in this video. You already know what you're supposed to do. Not in a vague, find your purpose sense. Specifically, concretely, there is something, probably the thing that came to mind in the first 10 seconds of this video, that you've been carrying in the one-day folder for longer than you want to admit. You know what it is. You've always known. The question was never what. The question was when, and the answer you kept giving was later, and later kept agreeing to be tomorrow, and tomorrow kept becoming next week, and next week became the quiet disappearing act that is most people's relationship with their own potential. And I'm not saying this to shame the delay. The delay made sense. You were protecting something. The version of you that hasn't failed yet. The dream that hasn't been tested yet. The story of yourself that still has a perfect ending available. But that protection has a cost. And at some point, the cost of protecting the dream exceeds the cost of risking it. You might fail. Probably you'll fail at parts of it. The first version will be worse than you imagined. There will be a period, long, uncomfortable, unglamorous, where you are visibly a beginner at the thing you care most about. That period is not the obstacle. That period is the price of admission. And everyone who's ever made anything real has paid it. The only people who avoided it are the ones who never started. And they still have one day. So here's the only thing I want you to do when this video ends. Not a mood board. Not a brainstorm. Not a list of all the things you need to have in place before you begin. One action. Specific. Small enough to do today. Directly pointed at the thing. Not a step towards starting. The start itself. Write the first paragraph. Make the first call. Sign up for the first class. Send the email you've been composing in your head for 6 months. Do one thing that makes it real. That moves it from the protected space of one day into the actual world where it can grow and stumble and become what it's supposed to become. One day was never coming, but today is already here. And the version of you that finally began, that version is one decision away. If something in this one reached you, save it. Send it to the person who needs to hear it. See you in the next one.